I started this channel with 2 long rambly videos about the costumes in the 100, about what made things make sense in closed-off societies with finite resources. Watching Silo made me think a lot of the same things. Welcome to Cinema Tire. This is your future. How will you dress it? If you've been following my ramblings for a while, you know that I love a post-apocalyptic story because there are so many things to consider when forecasting what will happen with clothing in the aftermath of a cataclysmic event. A friend and dear patron suggested that I read Wool before it was optioned to be a show. I didn't get to it back then, but they wanted me to read it because of a specific detail regarding the uniforms people wear for each job. When the show came out, they were surprised that the color-coded uniforms weren't a thing in the show. And honestly, after watching the first season without reading the first book, I think the change actually makes a lot of sense. So I'm gonna use their recommendation as a jumping off point for this video. Thanks, Ree. I read Wool and Shift, the first 2 books in the series that Silo is based on, a few months ago, but I watched the first season without having read them. Personally, I like the show more than the books. I'll maybe have a few spoilers for the books, but there will definitely be spoilers for the show. So let's begin. If you have a society where there are finite resources that have to be recycled and reused, it's going to be a lot harder to keep them exactly the same way for a long time, in this case 300 years. Garment evolution is going to have to take a lot of things into account because fibers can only last so long before they just give out. Taking a sweater apart and reknitting it from the yarn or remaking the yarn itself is more feasible than planting the crops or raising the livestock needed to make a specific uniform in a specific color, and also growing crops to make these dyes. Certain dyes are a luxury in times of hardship. Seeing the citizens in the Down Deep wearing muted colors would make sense because the fabrics can be taken apart and remade, so many muted colors can be made from byproducts of things they need to use and make. I'll talk a little bit more about this later. In the books, they're described as having color-coded overalls depending on their job, and they use the word coveralls and overalls interchangeably, so I might do that too. We see a nod to this dress code in flashbacks to Solo Silo. Again, this would likely work for a while, but if you're in an entire city of a rigidly monitored 10,000 people population, resources will have to change in matters of importance based on access, abundance, and scarcity. So to have coveralls for a job and they're just whatever color from time to time because you have a surplus of, say, nutshells from a bumper nut crop, a food that's protein heavy and can make oils and beverages, so it would serve many purposes, would make more sense in the grand scheme of things. Maybe for a few years, you make all dyes out of nutshell waste. But it's very short-sighted to decide everyone is just going to wear the color-coded garments with no change or individuality for hundreds of projected years and live in a peaceful society. And that's just it. Everyone, for the most part, just exists in this world. There are some folks that want to know more about the past, but as far as they know, this is all that's ever existed, and they'll be happy and comfortable and fed as long as they do their jobs and don't do crime. And that's literally just society. And in society, you end up with self-expression. While it doesn't look like there are definitive subcultures, there are definitely ways of expressing themselves visually, such as tattoos, different hairstyles, and making their own clothing and accessories. And since the city is, again, 10,000 people, and on top of it, they have to travel everywhere by foot, it's not often that they would move extensively throughout the silo. So it makes sense that the up-toppers look so incredibly different from the people in the mids and the down deep. I mean, even people from neighborhood to neighborhood look different in our world, so why wouldn't they look different in the entire silo? It's a city. Talking about a self-contained society that has to deal with either an unintended or planned scarcity, these citizens will likely have to troubleshoot. In the 100, the Ark and Mount Weather have plans for keeping a community of people safe and well-fed while keeping their home operated. When the survivors have to go underground, it's a sudden thing and it's an emergency, so they work with what they have. So in the silo, like 100's Ark and Mount Weather, they knew there was a real possibility that they would potentially have to overstay their projected emergence. So sewists, fiber and textile craftspeople, and lessons in clothing care are genuinely important. That being said, working together to have a functioning reuse and recycling plan would decrease the need for new material. Recycling and reknitting or recrocheting garments is a way to both breathe new life into exhausted clothing, but a way to reuse the fibers in an economical way. It's not that there's scarcity, there's just finite resources. So people have to be choosy about what they do, what they wear, and what they have or make. They have to keep a finite number of citizens there so that there isn't scarcity. Sweaters in the down deep look like they're visibly recycled and mended, and sweaters in the mids and up top look like they're machine knit or created slowly by someone with more ability to use free time to make something flashy. People who seem to be in more nurturing arts or stay-at-home parents seem to be surrounded by more crafty things like quilts, woven and knitted and hand-sewn things. We gotta talk about Sim's damn leather jacket.
Now you're a man, now you're a man.
This is my current Yennefer's dress. I have the following questions that I literally cannot stop thinking about. Do they have cows? How? How many? How much space do they have for them? How do they vent out the methane? Why don't they have goats? Goats need less space, and they also produce milk and meat with byproducts of leather, and Angora goats even produce mohair, so fibers for knitting. I know this is such an incredibly fussy thing to get hung up on, but that's clearly supposed to be cow leather. It's also not a relic. That jacket is brand spanking new compared to every other garment worn on that show. How did he get it? If they have enough room for enough cows to make it worthwhile for feeding the citizens, then why is he literally the only person wearing a jacket like this? Synthetic fibers are generally made from petrochemicals, so it could be a coal byproduct if that's what they're retrieving in the mines. So far it's kept vague, but even the process of making synthetic fibers for something like a cool jacket seems like an absolute waste of resources. This seems like an instance of trying to set Sims apart from everyone to make him look intimidating, but it just raises more questions about their agriculture and access to livestock. These are things to consider when dressing your character in a specific enclosed society. I think they could have had the same effect by putting him in like a waxed cotton jacket or, like a linen or something, but who am I? The cleaning suits are made for people who have to or want to go outside. The outside environment is unsafe, so it makes sense that they would need something like this. The cleaning suits are important as they're utilitarian, but they also serve alternate purposes. They were incredibly designed, and between the scene where they're cleaning it and scenes where people go out to clean while they're being outfitted with tape, the whole importance of the suits is heavy. It's a multi-layered way to control the populace in one garment. The City of Ember, published in 2003, tells the story of an underground city made to sustain humanity for 200 years. It follows Lena and Dune, two kids who have just been assigned jobs, and the city's infrastructure is dwindling. This movie was part of an avalanche of film adaptations during the dystopian YA boom. It had the same problem as a lot of adaptations around the same time, trying really hard to bring in a wider audience while not necessarily staying true to the feeling and important parts of the source material. Yes, Golden Compass, I'm looking at you again. But one of the things that it did so well was the costuming. You could tell that it was a civilization on the edge of dwindling resources, using what they had, mending what they could, and using bits and pieces to create piecemeal uniforms where needed, like the red capes for the messengers. The use of knits and natural fibers while showing the infrastructure in bits and pieces, like the crops and greenhouses, as well as the supply stores, was all very important to the world building and believability of the society that has been making things work for a little over 200 years. Utopia Falls was a silly little blip on the streaming radar early in the pandemic that I think definitely could have panned out into something if given at least another season. The premise was cute. It was like the Hunger Games, but lower stakes, in that instead of a child death competition, it was a performing arts competition with a dash of uglies. It was keeping people docile with obligations and beautiful things. Hundreds of years in the future, in the last living colony on Earth, a city called New Babel, 24 teenage candidates are chosen to take part in an annual music competition known as the Exemplar. This is another story where people are sectioned off by job and they have uniforms that are color-coded. And I do actually plan on talking about this more in another video, but I feel like this one works a bit better than Silo because even though it's a city with finite resources, they are above ground and they have more resources like fresh oxygen and the sun. So is Silo an original concept? Absolutely not. There are definitely stories that came before it that involved a tucked away city in a future that's unsafe to go outside and where they use regimented means to keep people in line while making those people think that they aren't being forced to be in those factions. The idea that your community is safe as long as you follow the rules without question is a common theme in dystopian fiction.
What's inside an $18 million luxury doomsday bunker?
One very interesting thing is this giant metal capsule. A lot of you are probably wondering, what is this? This right here could hold 5 human heads and 4 bodies. I don't really understand why it's 5 heads and 4 bodies.
In Silo, as well as the others I mentioned, we have dress codes for jobs, reusing and recycling clothing, finite agricultural resources, and hidden archives that show the way things used to be. I wanted to talk about these other stories that did this before Silo did to show certain things that I think were done better and why. But as a whole, Silo has done a really great job of adjusting the things in the books that didn't really make sense as far as costumes and using coded language of costume on screen to show jobs and societal status. As the show progresses, I see more and more things I like about it, with a few hangups that I just can't get over, but that's literally just a me issue. If you like this video, please check out my other videos. My secret power is never shutting up about anything, so I definitely have quite a few, despite the fact that I have kind of a sporadic upload schedule. Please like and subscribe. Comments make me smile, and I love to talk with you guys. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys are so awesome, and you keep me motivated to discuss more things. Thank you for believing in this silly little channel. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. If you're looking for more content, I have a pretty cool interview with the sweet and talented Rachel True, as well as the kind and creative Amanda Neal, costume designer for Sweet Tooth, over on my Patreon. Link for all of that and where you can get my cool "This is the Dumbest Dystopia" merch in the description. And until next time, be fancy, be adventurous. Uh-oh. Oh no. Is it still recording? Oh, it is.